Okay guys, this is as good as I think I can get it. Sorry it took so long. My computer won't let me access my camera, so I'm using my cell phone, and I had to figure out a way to get it up high enough so you could see it without me being in the way. So I've jimmy rigged a piece of plexiglass on 2 oatmeal containers and 2 wooden blocks, to believe it or not. So to start with, you should have either a piece of watercolor paper or one of those small canvases, about 5 by 7 in size. You might have grabbed an 8 by 10. That's fine too. Whatever size you're working with is okay. This is actually half of a piece of watercolor paper. It's approximately 4.5 by 9, 6 by 12, 6 by 9. I think it's 6 by 9 because I cut it in half the long one. So, once you have your paper, you're going to want to have a pencil handy. Sorry, forgot to mention you're going to have a pencil. I have my instant coffee. Doesn't really matter what kind you grabbed. It's just going to affect the color slightly, I would assume. Some people have espresso. Espresso is actually a little bit darker. This one is... It says it's a dark roast, but it turns out a pretty kind of brown. So that's what we're going for today. So I'll show you that as soon as we get our little sketch on. I know a lot of people like the gnomes that I was going to do, so I'm going to grab my pencil. And whatever size surface you're working on, you can kind of follow along. I'm just going to do one gnome on here today instead of a pair. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to start up here at the top. And I'm going to lightly draw kind of a little bit of like a circle, like a half of a circle right there. And I'm going to bring it down like I'm drawing a really large cone. Okay, you don't have to have straight lines. If they're a little wobbly, that's okay. His hat probably doesn't stand up so straight anyway. I'm going to bring it down a little bit further, and then I'm going to round it up. That's where his nose is going to be. Alright, so it kind of looks like that. Alright, I'm going to put his nose in here. Nice big circle. And then the rest down here, the table's got a crack right where I need to draw, so excuse me for moving this a bit. I'm just going to kind of wisp in some hair, some long beard marks. Kind of like a pine tree, honestly. You can have a couple lines coming down here if you want. You don't have to put a lot of detail in. That's just going to be where we're going to be putting... trying to get a picture so you can see it. It's kind of hard to see. Again, I'm drawing fairly light because the coffee won't cover up the pencil line. So, alright. Once you have that, we'll go on to our next step. Drinking some coffee. If I can find my my coffee. Normally I don't put creamer in it, but I made my own creamer today, so it's delicious. A little on the cold side as I was trying to figure out the camera thing. Okay, now that I'm caffeinated, I grabbed these at the dollar store. It was a pack of 10. And that's what I'm going to use for my coffee. So I have my just regular kitchen spoon, big spoon, not the small one, so tablespoon, I guess. I'm going to go for a kind of a heaping. It's kind of hard to show you heaping on this because it's directly above it, but a heaping spoonful. And then I also have a little container here filled with just plain water. I'm going to splash just the smallest bit in there. Hardly any at all. And I'm going to start stirring. Because it's instant, it kind of becomes pasty. If you're using actual grounds, you'll find this won't work. If you have an espresso machine and you can make yourself a dark roast espresso, go for it. It'll do the same thing. I don't want it as thick as chocolate syrup here, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. And stir that in again. It is still on the thick side, but now it's more of a consistency of maybe a barbecue sauce. And if you have it a little runnier, that's okay. You'll just use less water when you're drawing or painting, I should say, when we're painting. Having it on the thicker side here, let's see, I don't know if you can see how it's running off my spoon there. Makes it a little easier so that we can move it around, add the water as we need it rather than having it too wet. If it's too wet to begin with, basically you're just going to have to put a lot of layers on. And we always talk about layering when it comes to our artwork. Alright, so now I'm sitting down, so I can't really see my phone anymore, so hopefully I'm staying within the image here. Alright. Now I still have my water, and I still have my coffee. Let me get my spoon out of my way. My brush here that I'm using is just a round brush, probably a 6, I don't know. I use them for everything, guys. Oh, it's a 4, I was going to say, so my number's usually worn off. But it's pretty similar to what you'll find in a watercolor kit. Nothing too special or fancy about it. I just buy my paintbrushes in bulk on at NASCO, enasco.com, because you know I'm an art teacher and I can get a discount, so we do that. So to start with, we're going to do the background. So to do the background, I'm going to get my paintbrush wet, and I'm actually just going to put the water on the background. And you don't have to do a large area at a time. You can stick with small areas. Then you can dip your paintbrush into that coffee mixture and you start putting it down. And if you want your background lighter, which we will, we'll add more water. Another thing you can use, ladies and gents, boys and girls, kids of all ages. I know Jennifer was on here. She was hoping her boys were going to be up, so hopefully you guys can see this. Hopefully my internet connection's not too terrible. My kids are using the Wi-Fi right now, so I'm trying to use my data off my phone. We'll see how well it works. If you have a piece of paper towel, you can kind of crumple it up. And if you get too much water on, or too much coffee on, you can dab it off. So we went from really dark to less dark just by taking a paper towel and actually drawing that back off. So I'm going to go back and continue with the background. And I don't know if you can hear the music in the background. I put on Pandora on my computer since I couldn't use my computer for this. And it keeps the ads out because we have MacBooks at school. And you can do an ad stop. It's free. It gets rid of all the ads that play. So every once in a while it asks me if I'm still listening. But I don't have to worry about the ads popping up, which is nice. My kids actually, my students, when I say my kids, I'm talking about my students right now. They're actually have commented. Some don't like my taste in music. Others find it really interesting because I tend to put it on shuffle. I have Latin pop music on here. I have regular pop music on here. I have country music. I have Christian rock. I listen to oldies, 60s and 70s. You name it, and I'm listening to it. So I'm going to go back through here. I was adding more water and more coffee both all the time. I'm going to lightly pat on here so that my background looks kind of looks more watercolor-ish. So you kind of have a nice wash. You have areas that are a little bit darker, areas that are still pretty light. And I'm just going to continue on with the rest of the background. So I always dip in my water first, and I don't worry about cleaning off my brush, at least not now, because the whole background is going to have coffee on it anyway. Now, when we get into some more of the details, you can decide if you want to put in some shadowing. So you can decide, okay, in this case, my light source is from a spotlight, well, desk light right over there. So you can see that it's lighting up this corner more. So if I was to say that's my natural light source, that's where the sun is hitting the gnome. This part over here on the left side of the canvas, or the left side of the gnome, would actually be darker. And this over here, where the light is hitting, is going to be lighter. So if you want to do a little bit of more realistic type of painting, I would suggest adding in some of those lighter and darker areas, because it'll make your painting look more realistic, more three-dimensional, and a lot more interesting. Now, if I was to take just straight coffee here mixture without actually putting any water on the background, it would take a little bit more to lift it up and off. And what I mean by that is when it's wet, and you saw me dab with the paper towel, it takes off quite a bit. But if we leave it where it was pretty dry and add the coffee, you can see how it's taking off less and less, because the coffee was actually had less water in it than it did the first time. If you make a mistake, fun thing with watercolors, and painting with coffee is the same as painting with watercolors, all right? You can add a bunch of water. I can saturate this with water. I can take my paper towel and I can soak it up and get it pretty close back to a white paper. It's never going to be white paper again or white canvas again, but I can pull up enough that it's going to bring it back to that lighter color. For instance, his hat here. I'm not going to worry that that's there, but just to show you, because this will be covered with coffee grounds later, if I said, oh no, that wasn't supposed to be that dark, I can go in here with my paintbrush. I can add that water. You notice already I can squeeze the water off my paintbrush and soak it back up this way. You can notice how that dot just kind of disappeared. Fun fact, I was learning on Facebook while I was trying to do this. You can actually rewind Facebook Live videos. I did not know that previously. I don't know how to do it. I can't walk you through it or anything. But if it's something you're interested in, that's the option. It will be posted after this, so if you missed anything, don't worry. You can go back and watch it different times. You can share it with your friends. You could say, hey, look what my cool lady that I go to my art workshops does. She's offering up these free classes while this coronavirus thing is going on, so that we can, not lose our sanity. Because for many of us, art is therapy. And with everything that's going on, it's nice to just be able to do something and not have to think about what's going on in the outside world. It's nice to be able to still stay in contact with each other, even if it's just on a Facebook Live feed. It's nice to be able to do things like Zoom and the FaceTime and Skype with people. I was never really a fan of those things before because, I didn't have to. But now it's kind of an essential if you want to stay in contact with people, is to, get over that fear of how you might think you look on cameras and just go for it. I don't have a problem Zooming and whatever with people. I don't like seeing myself in that little upright corner or bottom corner, wherever you put it on your phone. Yeah, I'm a little self-conscious about things like that. So I'm constantly fixing my hair and trying to make myself look all pretty for people staring at me. And they're just like looking at me like, yeah, whatever. Because, they see me all the time. You guys see me. Oh, there goes my hair. You guys see me when I'm doing these workshops. I don't have to see myself. And it's a lot different when you're constantly staring at yourself than staring at your beautiful faces. So that's just a self-conscious thing of mine. So pay no attention. So I'm almost done with my background here. I am going back over some areas, adding some of that darker color. I can go back through with my water or my paper towel and clean some up if I want. If I don't want a harsh edge, I can just keep going through and adding more water and blending that out. So that's how we would blend things out with the watercolors. We just add a little bit more water. We can blend those colors out, lighten it up quite a bit. Just basically moving the water, colored water, coffee colored water over the page. Not really adding anything more. It's still pretty wet right now for me. Yours might not be as wet. It just depends on how much water you put in. And again, there's no right or wrong. It's just try it, see what you like, see what makes sense for you. So if you guys want to leave a comment at some point and tell me what other painting that I posted you want to see next, and next Saturday we'll do another painting for you guys. Again, we're going to keep it small, so if you get to Walmart or if you get to the dollar store for your essentials, don't go out and get it unless you have to go out for your groceries or something. Just think about it, pick up some extra art supplies. Like I said in my post, you basically just get your primary colors. If you don't have a lot of money, get your 3 primary colors, black and white. So red, yellow, and blue, black and white, and we'll mix everything that you need. The little bottles are about yay big, 2.2 ounces or something like that, or 2 ounces. I think they're 2 ounces, not 0.2 ounces. They're 2 ounces. They're the Craft Apple Barrel, whatever, Craft Barn, Apple Barn stuff from Walmart. They're 50 cents a piece. You can get matte, you can get glossy. If you get the glossy, they're going to cost more money. You can get the kind that is actually all-purpose or multi-purpose use, I think it says on there. If you spend the money to get the multi-purpose, you can actually use those to paint on glass as well. So for those of you who've ever been to some of my glass painting events, there are enamels. It's in the same section, it's the same size bottle. They cost a little bit more, but those are specifically for glasses. The multi-purpose you can use for glass, for wood, for paper, for whatever you want, canvas. So it's like $1.98 or $1, I don't know what it is. It's less than $2 for one of those bottles if you wanted to get the multi-purpose. When it comes to picking out your reds, your blues, and your yellows, just, you know, a bright red, a crimson, or not a crimson, sorry, what's the name of the blue? Phthalo blue? No, that's green. I don't remember, I don't have it, but I'll try to get that posted for you guys next time, and I'll show you some bottles. I'll take a picture of them, show what I have. So if you're wondering why your colors don't look exactly like mine, it could be because of the colors you picked or whatever from Walmart, and that's okay, because we can still make it work. Remember, it's not about trying to make it exactly like mine. It's trying to just explore a new technique, painting new things, and learning as we go. All right, so I have my background done. Hi, Leah. Sorry, I'm finally looking at my things there. I see Jen's watching. Stores are starting to run out or completely run out. Try ordering on Amazon. Oh, wonderful. There you go. So, yeah, here you go. I guess stores are starting to run out of paint supplies even. But if you have a chance, you know, even if you can't find canvases, like I said, you could get a multi-purpose paper. The watercolor paper here, I got at Walmart. It's 9x12. You can get different sizes. That's what I'm doing on today. But it would work well with acrylic paints as well, just because it's thicker. If you get a larger pad, then you can just cut it down to the size that you want and cut them down into 4s and into half, whichever, and then you'll have more to work with. Don't forget, you have the back side of papers too. So I know kids, when I teach them at school, love to just go grab another sheet of paper, but really encourage your kids or your spouse or yourself to try using both sides. Okay, especially if you're going to be painting on paper, this is going to warp, and that's okay. Especially if you use anything like acrylics, the acrylics will definitely warp your paper just because they're heavy. In order to avoid that or to help it not warp so much, you basically just paint a big X on the back of your canvas with the same medium that you're using, and that helps to kind of pull it back flat. Otherwise, putting it in a frame with a piece of glass will work great too. I'll be right back because I'm going to get some more coffee. Back. See, my coffee gets a little darker because I don't always add cream. Alright, so how do you guys like your coffee? Or do you not like drinking coffee? I know some people like the smell of coffee but can't stand drinking it. Alright, so we're going to move on to the gnome. Again, we're not going to worry about his hat. I mean, if you don't have coffee grounds, and any coffee grounds will work except for the instant. I think those would probably disintegrate with the glue. But if you have a Folgers or Bears Brothers or whatever your favorite coffee is in the house, it just makes the painting smell that much better. We're actually going to put Mod Podge or white glue down here on your hat, and then we're going to fill that in with the coffee grounds. So I have some coffee grounds left over from another painting we did at Caribbean on Highway 67 and 12 in Elkhorn and ES. They're fairly new. They sell Anaheim coffee, and they have a drive-up, people. So they have a drive-through window that's functioning completely 100% right now. So if you need your coffee fix, good coffee fix, you're tired of your, Folgers or whatever. I love Folgers. Simple. But yeah, their coffee is delicious. So, Anaheim, not Anaheim, Anodyne. Something like that. Really good coffee. My husband says it's anodyne. He knows. All right. So I'm going to go back in here with my water. I'm going to kind of squeeze it a little bit. Take some of that water out. Or I could blot it on my paper towel. And I'm going to put right around his nose here. And his whole nose is now colored in with water. I'm going to dip into my coffee. Kind of blot it off over here. Sorry, I'm on my towel here, so it's not so strong. And I'm going to start by painting that upper part of his nose. If you need to fix your lines, if you didn't make a perfect circle or whatever shape you were trying to make, because it can be kind of oblong, go ahead and adjust that at this point. I'm going to dip into my water, kind of rinse out my brush, get some of that off there again, and I'm going to try to pull that water across. And I'm just lightly touching. Remember, the pressure on your brush is just as important as how much product you have on your brush. All the way down here to the bottom. I'm going to leave a little bit kind of almost untouched there. It has some on it. It has, but it's not overly got coffee on there. Kind of like a highlight to his nose. Try to get that up there so you can see it. I'm tipping it towards the light so you guys can see, but because otherwise my head blocks, the camera blocks the other light above my head. And that's as far as his nose has to go. The rest of the shading and the rest of his beard. Now, if I picture gnome, I picture his beard being white, like, Papa Smurf. So I don't want to leave it white because that's boring, right? And it looks unfinished. And it's like, gee, Jen, thanks for showing us much of nothing. So I'm going to show you how to paint the lighter colors here. Just like you were doing with your background, you want to wash this down. But before we do that, if you ended up putting any little details in, you can dip your brush into that coffee. And you can kind of maybe outline some of those. Again, really light pressure. It makes my line stay thin because my bristles aren't squished out onto the paper. I can also run this along the hat line because will be a nice shadow area under here. Bless you, honey. I assumed you heard that sneeze because he's really loud, but maybe not. Alright, so now I'm going back into my water. I rinsed off my brush again. I dab it off a little bit on here, and I'm going to start painting his hair. And I'm going to let my paintbrush get into that darker color a little bit. As I move it down, it's just going to help blend. Trying to go around his nose. Once I get around his hat with my water and I'm dragging that color down a little bit, then I'm going to be moving my strokes up and down or in the direction that his hair would be falling. His really long, fuzzy, furry, beardy, haired stuff that he's got going on. I don't know. What do you want to call it? I don't know. Alright. So, if you notice now, my strokes are going to be moving in that direction. So, just nice long strokes. Remember, if I push my paintbrush down, my bristles spread out. If I just put little pressure on, they stay pretty tight and round. So, depending on where you're at and how you're moving your paint around, can be how much pressure you want to put on. When you're getting around those tight areas, lift up that pressure so you're not putting a lot of pressure down. I'm going to dip back into my dark and go underneath his nose now. I don't want it super dark under there, but I do want it to be a shadow under there. I will bring that down and pull it in with the rest of the papers. Papers, that made no sense. Brush strokes. Not enough coffee yet this morning, ladies. I don't know if you're still watching, Leah, but I know Ella likes art, so I imagine this is something she could be doing too. I know Maddie Melvitz likes it a lot, so maybe she'll get to see it. If you tag her parents in that, Leah, that'd be awesome. Or Linda. You could tag Linda in it, and then she can show Maddie too. Alright. So as I'm dragging the color down, as I just keep re-dipping into the water, I'm not really going into the coffee that much. I'm just kind of moving everything around. I pull some of that darker back down. You know, I try to make my brush strokes kind of follow like a curvy, I don't know, the way I think his hair would fall. At some point you'll notice you kind of run out of coffee, and you're gonna just be painting on water, and that's okay, because whether you believe it or not, there's a little bit of coffee in every little brush stroke there, so. Now, if you have a hair dryer, you can dry it slightly with the hair dryer. That's another way you can dry things. If it's really wet, hair dryer, heat gun, it's just going to push the water around, so you have to be kind of careful on that. If it's not, that's, you know, you can go with paper towel. You can get a clean one. You don't have to keep using the same old dirty one. You put it down and you can kind of lightly press on it and bring it up. As you notice, it's going to leave the texture of whatever kind is on your paper towel. It's going to pull up maybe more than what you wanted. That just means you're going to go back through and add more with your layering, and that's good, because anytime you're painting, layering really helps give it more depth and more dimension. So it's better to put more on than just to leave it once and be done. I know a lot of people get a little nervous when it comes to adding a second coat because they like the way something looks, but it really will make your art look better in the long run. Maybe not on this exact piece, but the more you practice, the more you try, the better you'll get, and kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone. You know, really force yourself to go past what you think looks okay. And if you screw something up, just keep going. Keep working on it until you get it back to a place that you're happy with it. Eventually, you'll forget about what it looked like before, and you'll come back to it and you're like, wow, that looks really good. I'm going to go back in here to my coffee. My paintbrush is fairly dry. I'm going to add some of those wispy hairs back in here. Let me segment my sections out a little bit. Bring it into some water as well. Kind of get some more different color ranges in there, you know, because if you have highlights, you have shadows. It's not just dark and, you know, light. You've got nice value study going on, basically, is kind of what we're doing here. So now at some point too, you might notice that your bristles, depending on how old your brush is, you know, might have little furry things that kind of come off, that kind of go off on their own, or your brush doesn't stay to a nice point anymore, and it's old, you know. And then when you're creating lines, sometimes you have this sketchiness to it that you wouldn't normally have if you had a new brush. And you either have to decide, hey, I like that, or I need to get a new brush. I like seeing what the different brushes give me sometimes. I don't worry too much. If you notice here, it kind of gave me like a bunch of little lines, like 4 or 5 little lines here, because my bristles aren't close together. That just makes it look more like hair to me, so I'm going to leave it. I'm just going to kind of come in and add some more layers, like I said, of where I think that hair might fall. Add some dark shadowy areas. Kind of go back in with my water brush. I can always lighten it up. If I'm like, oh no, that's too dark, I can always come back and lighten it up. And then if I decide later to add more and layer it up again, I have that ability. And so do you. Thanks. I like the music too. Now, I've seen a couple different gnomes before. If you wanted to put a mustache on your gnome, you could put a mustache on your gnome. I'm not going to show you how to do it because I don't want one on this gnome. But you could definitely, you know, by creating some lines coming in, you know, down here, and give him like a big handlebar mustache if you wanted to, along with the hairs that come down on the outside. So I'm still going around the outside, especially on that left side over there that's got more of that shadowy area. I'm kind of making sure that I have some of those nice dark colors, dark values of that coffee in there. If if you left any spot down at the bottom where it might be still ground and not his hair, you can fill that in if you don't want it to just completely run off the page. I decided right here would be kind of a fun spot to say, oh, that's where, you know, his hair isn't quite as long and it's ground. So he's not tripping on his hair. There's something similar over here. I'm not sure how yet. On this side. Let me see if I can. I'm still seeing it there. There we go. Sorry, I was seeing your comments. I couldn't see if you guys could see what my painting looks like. So I just dipped straight into that darker color. My paper is really dry right here. So whatever I do here, it's going to be hard to remove the color. Come in with my clear water again and lift some of that up so it's not quite as, there we go, dark on that side. Now let's see what we do down here. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Bob Ross, but I don't know. My husband and I will sit here a lot, and we're like, no, Bob, don't do that. It looks so good. And then it looks so much better when he's done. So, see, he knows. He's an artist of many years. Well, before he passed. You know, so he practiced and he layered. I mean, nothing of his canvases were never white when he started. He always had something already on them. So if you ever get lost and you feel like you can't quite make something look, try starting by putting a neutral color on your canvas. So if in this case we're doing the coffee, you know, just wash it all down with a really light coat of the coffee, you know, just really get it wet and just bring that coffee, kind of fill in those areas, just get it off of being white, and that's going to help you get started and not have fear sometimes. If you're working in acrylic, you can, you know, put like a neutral gray or a brown or something. Just, you know, mix something up. But I've seen even stores are selling black canvases, you know, and it gives a whole different look and different feel. You can paint over a black canvas just like you can paint on a white canvas. You know, so a lot of times people like to leave the black showing through, you know, or maybe use it for like a sign and use their Cricut or Silhouette machine or something and cut out a stencil and put like a bright neon color on it so it stands out against the black. It looks really cool, but you can still use the black canvas like you would a white canvas. Sorry, coffee break. So it's just going to give you a different richness, really, because you're not starting with white. So anytime you paint a light color over that black canvas, that black background, it's gonna give it this depth, this darkness that you wouldn't normally have with the white canvas. And I know for some of you who've been to my workshops before, you know, you try to paint over red or you try to paint over a blue or a green, and you're noticing that this color doesn't cover it very well. And I'm like, well, you can always put white back on it and then color, you know, over it again. With the black, you'll notice that for most colors, it doesn't cover it very well. But the more you layer, and again, that layering is what really is going to matter. All right, so I'm going to come back up here and kind of outline my hat a little bit more, just because once I get the coffee ground, I don't want to lose this line here. Kind of want it still there on this side. This guy here, maybe I'll feather it out a little bit. My hand's starting to get sticky against this paper. You might have noticed that. Coffee is sticky, surprisingly. So I don't know if you guys know, but coffee actually comes from a cherry. The coffee bean, it's like a pit of a cherry. Not the cherries we eat up here or see up here, but it is basically a fruit that it's coming from. I was lucky enough to go listen to one of those coffee 101 type classes at Stillwater in Elkhorn. So I really enjoy their coffee as well. It's nice in a town of 10,000. We have so many different coffee houses. I know Delavan has your Starbucks and your Dunkin' Donut, but the thing that they're missing is they're missing that good cafe. And I'm not talking about Elizabeth's, which is amazing, by the way. But I'm talking about a good coffee shop that just sells really good coffee, not burnt beans that is just cheap burnt beans that a certain company likes to roast and everyone loves so much. I won't name them. Starbucks. But no, I'm just kidding. I know a lot of people like their coffee. I'm just not a fan. So I'm just going to go around his nose here again and try to add a little bit more of that dark to it, as if like the shadow of the hat here is kind of a little bit darker. I know a lot of times when I do workshops, I tend to paint really fast. We tend to talk really fast. But with this, you guys can turn me off whenever you want. I don't have to pay attention to how quickly you guys are going or how slow you're going. You can go at your own speed, which is really nice. And I don't have to be concerned with, okay, I have to be done in 2 hours for this business, because that's kind of their time limit on it, whatever. And I don't feel the need to rush, which is kind of nice. I think I might be done with my guy here. I mean, I might tweak it later. I don't know. I think he's done. He's good enough. That's just what I tell my students. I said, never tell me it's good enough, because I will always tell you go back and rework it. Yeah, I like him. He's good. I've got my lighter source coming over here. You know, that's where my light is coming in. That's why he's got the shadow falling over here. You're going to see the shadow underneath his hat, because the hat would be underneath his hair. You're going to have shadows. So next, what I'm going to have to do is clean out my brush. Should probably get another piece of paper towel here. Just make sure my brush is cleaned out, because I don't want Mod Podge and coffee mixing. I do have Mod Podge. I always say Mod Podge, but it's Mod Podge. I have the matte. You can have the glossy. It really doesn't matter, because you're going to cover it up anyway. But if you decide later you want your paint or your painting to be a little bit more shimmery, I would say spray it with like a glossy clear coat. A spray can of clear, you know, just enamel. I don't know what it is, enamel or who knows, but people always ask me. I'm like, I don't know. I just go get a spray can that says clear and I spray it on. Over the years, it'll yellow, but the coffee doesn't matter. So same paintbrush. I didn't actually need to use my smaller brush. If you wanted to, depending on how good this paintbrush was, you could have used your tiny little detail brush to do some of these little lines. Yeah, sorry if you're just like, oh, duh, why didn't I switch that? And I'm like, yeah, I didn't tell you to. So I typically always like to have, this is a 3/0, which means really, really small. They have smaller ones, believe it or not. I believe a 10/0 is the smallest I've ever seen. They're super tiny, only a few bristles in there, but they still, yeah, spread out just like anything else. And like I've told you guys before, you know, if you're dipping in and your brush is getting too, if you take it, dip it in the water and twist your paintbrush. If you twist it on your canvas or twist it on your palette, you'll bring it to more of that tip again, so that it bristles stay together. Alright, so big paintbrush. I'm really going to glob it on here, ladies, and I'm only going to do a small section at a time because the glue dries really fast. I'm painting the glue in the area of the hat. And you don't want it too thin. You actually want it pretty thick on there, because you need the coffee grounds to stick to it. So we'll do This left corner of his hat, about, I don't know, a quarter of it, of the whole entire hat we'll work on doing here. Quarter to a third. Alright, that's that there. I'm trying to get out of my big beans here. Now, my family loves Highlander Grog from Bears Brothers, so that's what I'm using because I like the way it smells. I have some chunky bits in here, and I have some finer ground. So, I'm going to try to get some of that chunkier to stick to. I'm going to grab some more Mod Podge. Really goop it on there. If you end up getting any coffee grounds in your bristles, just rinse it out with water first before you dip back into your Mod Podge. Otherwise, you're going to have the coffee in your Mod Podge. If you don't mind, that's fine, but, you know, your next project, you might not want coffee grounds in your Mod Podge. So, and then your paintbrush will clean just as easy with the Mod Podge as it does with, you know, paint and acrylics and anything. So just warm soapy water, you can clean it all out, let it dry flat if you want. If you have something you can set your paintbrush in, and actually it's better not to store it this way. It's better to store it this way, but you don't want this touching something on the bottom. So if you had a clip that you could clip and let them dry, you know, hanging from the top, that would be ideal. Or if you have bigger paintbrushes with a hole in the handle, it's best to have them dry that way, just because of the glue and the bristles. They have all that gunk go down into this, I forget what it's called, phenol, you know what it's called. Anyway, but I typically just let them dry flat, or this way, you know, just because it's for ease of me transporting stuff, kind of what I have to do. I grabbed my bag of coffee, so I'm getting some that's a little bit finer. And I'm going to finish sprinkling it on there. If you have a paper plate handy, or just a regular plate, I don't know, doesn't really matter. If you want to put the coffee grounds onto that, the excess ones, and then you can put it back into not your regular drinking coffee, but if you have a bag separate or something that you have for projects like I do. I know not everyone has coffee hanging around your house not to drink, but you know. And then I'm just going to kind of press him down in there. He's completely covered, just to make sure we have good contact with the glue. Let me put my beans away here. Now I can pour mine right back into my bag because I'm not drinking out of this one anymore, that's for sure. So I'm just going to dump it right back in there. You'll notice areas where the glue is a little bit dry. You'll have to add some more, like up here in my hat, down here. You can kind of push them around a little bit. Let me rinse off my brush and try a little bit more in that corner up there. And just really goop it on. And if it goes over top of the other, that's fine. Trying to twist some of that off my brush because there's still a lot on there. Alright. Some more of my grounds. And that's it, ladies and gents. That's our coffee painting. If you want, you can sign it. You can use a pencil. A lot of times with watercolor, people will leave like a white edge or a border around it, tape it down to a surface so it stays flat. And then in that area, they will put like the name in the middle of what the title of the painting, and they'll put their name down on the right, just like a print. Some people will actually just take the watercolor, a certain color that was used in their picture, and they'll just, you know, paintbrush their name down here on the side, wherever it's still noticeable but doesn't distract from the painting. Also, if you want to use just a pen or a marker on there too, you can. You don't have to sign it if you don't want to. I just, as an artist, usually always sign my stuff. I'm going to cover up my Mod Podge because the stuff can get kind of smelly. See, and I still pronounce it wrong even though I know how to say it. It's Mod Podge. Anywho. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Feel free to share it with all the people in your friends group and whatever, and do what you have to do. Anyone can paint one of these. It's fine. You've got all the products that you need. You have some instant coffee, a little bit of water, some containers to put it in, a round brush, a detail brush if you need it. A piece of watercolor paper or a canvas board works well too. Like I said, the dollar store, and Walmart, any place that's still considered essential that would carry art supplies. My friend Jennifer here said that a lot of places are running out of these types of a thing. Maybe it's not necessarily essential for most people. So hopefully they'll restock and you'll be able to buy some products, but don't go crazy. Leave some supplies for everybody else out there. Just get what you need and just try to have fun. I'll try to do one of these workshops every Saturday just to keep us sane and keep us together. So have a great week. Bye.